Now I'm honored to introduce Maria Archila, one of the nation's most powerful voices for the rights of immigrants, people of color, and all working people, and also someone I call a friend and comrade. She's the co-director of the Center for Popular Democracy Action. Ana Maria, thank you for joining us. We've all seen the images of that young father and his child washed up on the shores of the Rio Grande in Texas. We've all heard Donald Trump's threats about unprecedented ICE raids. So to start, can you help us understand what's happening and put in context these images that we're seeing and these messages that we're hearing?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here. It is such an honor to join my Working Families Party family in this moment. Happy Pride, everyone. It's also a great honor to join with Tiffany, the person who represents the place where I live and whose campaign brought together incredible energy and a sense of hope and possibility for like thousands of people and many immigrants who live in Queens, the county with the highest population of immigrants in this country. Thank you, Maurice, for asking me to speak to this. I know all of us have seen the images of children in jail facilities, in cages. We have seen the articles about children being denied soap and toothbrushes, living in crowded, unsafe conditions, separated from their families, subject to cruel treatment that will inevitably lead to trauma for a long part of their life. We have heard the stories of people dying in custody, some of them children. And we have seen the images of a father and his daughter washing up on the shores of the Rio Grande River. I wish I could tell you that this is new or that it can be resolved easily. The fact is that we got here after decades and decades of Republican cruelty and Democrat complacency. And the end, when Trump took office, he was handed an immigration enforcement apparatus of ICE and Border Patrol that was greatly expanded under Obama, and that was cruel. And he brought that level of cruelty to new levels, new heights. So it will take all of us staying in this fight for a long time to not only close the detention camps or stop the separation of families at the border, but fundamentally transform the ways in which our country treats people who come to our shores in search of refuge, in search of community, in search of opportunity, in search of family. The conditions that we're seeing today in the detention camps are not an accident. They are the byproduct of an intentional strategy by the Trump administration to terrorize immigrant communities and criminalize immigration. And he has, from the first day in office, been carrying out a pretty systematic plan, very much in the line of a white nationalist political program, that to remove protections from immigrants. So we remember the Muslim ban on basically day 5 of his administration. We remember the efforts to roll back DACA. We remember the efforts to erase the temporary protected status program, then followed by the criminalization of border crossing, which then was the thing that enabled him to separate families at the border. And then followed by attempts and threats to inflict kind of massive terror through raids in the interior, and a political effort to make sure that immigrants who are still here and who are part of our communities are not counted, are essentially removed from the population of our country, so that the Republicans can have political gain. So I will start, I lay it out this way because the outrage that we are seeing, both the outrage that we saw last summer during the crisis of family separation at the border and the outrage that we're seeing today about children in detention, is absolutely right. And we need to listen to that voice inside that says, I cannot believe that we are doing this, and actually engage in a permanent fight. We have in our hands a fight that is both a moral fight, it is a narrative fight, and it is a political fight. So the crisis of children in detention camps is fundamentally the result of both an increase in waves of migration coming from Central America, not just of individual adults, but of entire families, people who are fleeing the worst kinds of violence in countries that are supposedly at peace, that don't have declared war. Um, and we are seeing Border Patrol, which is ill-equipped, which was designed to essentially catch people at the border within 100 miles of the border and quickly detain them and deport them, catch adults, is now detaining and incarcerating families in volumes that it is not prepared to do. So right now, today, Border Patrol, people who are essentially police officers of the border with military weapons, are housing in their facilities 2,000 children. They have the Border Patrol infrastructure is set up to house about 6,000 adults. They're not set up to house children. They're supposed to release children within 72 hours. Children are staying in these facilities overcrowded, without blankets, without toothbrushes, with children, taking care of children. They're staying in there for weeks. And right now, in addition to the 2,000 children that we see in these jails, in these cages, there are close to 16,000 adults. So the crisis is intense, and there's no demand that can mitigate the harm. We are in a situation where harm is happening on our watch in profound ways. So what we have to do is understand that this is a moment where history is looking upon us, and we will have to answer questions about what we did when we saw these children in cages, what we did when we heard the cries of children separated from their families, and what we did when we saw the pictures of children wrapped in their father's t-shirt washing up on the shore of our country. So I will share with you today that the thing that gives me hope is that people have in fact turned out to fight. That when children were being separated from their families, thousands and thousands and thousands of people who believe that we ought to welcome people who seek refuge, and we ought to respect everyone's human rights. Thousands of people showed up to march. Thousands of people showed up to DC and participated in actions of civil disobedience. Thousands of people donated. Thousands of people listened to the voice inside that said, I must do something. But I want to perhaps talk a little bit about both the necessity for us to engage in a moral fight and to use our bodies to stand with others, to show up in public ways, to display with public displays of outrage, but also to drive that energy to push and make demands of those who have power. Members of Congress seem to be split in their analysis of the crisis. The Republicans, and in some ways Pelosi and kind of the centrist Democrats, believe that the crisis is a resource problem, that if they give Trump and ICE and Border Patrol and DHS more money, that they will be able to resolve this crisis. And others believe that what we are seeing is a deliberate mistreatment and neglect from an administration that doesn't deserve any more trust. And we saw that disagreement display, like in full display in the last few days when Trump basically asked Congress for billions of dollars for supposed humanitarian aid. And the Republicans in the Senate granted billions without any kind of curtails around how that money should be used. The Democrats had a pretty vigorous debate to make a proposal, but at the end of the day, Nancy Pelosi essentially agreed with the Senate bill, and several members of Congress who are progressive and are on our side and want to draw a much more like clear moral line voted against that. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and close to 100 others voted with us. So this disagreement is is in full display. We have to, in this moment, help establish a very clear moral line, because we did not get here just with Trump. We got here with the Republicans, law and order politics, and the complacency of Democrats. So in these moments, we have to push Democrats to make sure that they are able to hold a more clear moral line. And we have to engage in actions that that create momentum towards a bigger and more vigorous demonstration by the public. So people, I will kind of walk you through several kind of opportunities for action. But let me stop there and see if, Maurice, you have other questions before I move people into actions.
Yeah, no, actually, you're right on target, Ana Maria, and thank you so much for sharing in this rare moment of very, very urgent moral action. So I was just going to wrap up this portion of the conversation by asking you, what is it that everybody on the line could do right now in order to show real solidarity and to support folks that are on the front lines in this battle?
Okay. So the thing that's amazing is that lots of people are taking action. The thing that I want people to remember is that these will demand all of us staying for the long haul. But I'm going to give you a couple of pointers for actions that you can take in the next few weeks. So first, on Tuesday, Move On, United We Dream, Families Belong Together, and others are organizing actions targeting members of Congress. We want to, because members of Congress are going to be back home because of the July 4th weekend, we want to show up to their offices and make fundamentally do actions that pressure them with three demands, lift three demands: close the camps, not $1 for family detentions and deportation. So do not give Trump any more money for more cruelty, and bear witness and reunite families. So that's one, that's on Tuesday, July 2nd. You can go to Move On's website, and it's the first thing on their website. You can find actions near you. You can organize actions. Now, on July 12th, there is a whole kind of broad and growing coalition of organizations and activists, people who are organizing resistance groups that are staging actions that are trying to draw a very clear moral line. So if you go to the website lightsforliberty.org, lightsforliberty.org, on July 12th, you will find a list of actions across the country. We want to be doing actions in front of ICE facilities, so detention centers. You will find a link to a detention center near you where you can participate in a vigil. It's going to be a night of vigils everywhere. And you can organize your own as well. Vigils in front of detention facilities, vigils in front of federal offices, and other places of gathering. And finally, we are in the context of an election. The Democrats have for a long time essentially been promoting a framework of immigration reform that says, well, we have to, in order to legalize some people, we have to militarize the border and expand detentions and deportations. That's what, when they say comprehensive immigration reform, that's what they mean. some legalization in exchange for more enforcement, more separations, more detentions, more deportations. That has not worked in our favor. Essentially, we have only gotten the detentions, deportations, and militarization, and not the legalization. So we want Democrats to stop saying that. Stop saying comprehensive immigration reform. Say they will use their power to welcome immigrants into this country, to respect people's human rights, to end the cruel enforcement of immigration law. My organization, the Center for Popular Democracy, just published a framework for a new vision of immigration that we want Democrats to be speaking about. You can visit the website of United We Dream, unitedwedream.org, and find that framework. You can sign the pledge to express your support for that framework. And over the next over the season of election, we have to do everything that we can to make Democrats lift up a vision that is an inclusive society, that stands in clear contrast with Trump's white nationalist, exclusionary vision of our country. We have to force them to speak about a vision that actually respects the dignity of human life, that respects the value of people and families and communities. So that's a lot. I know as an organizer, you're usually supposed to give people one thing. I honestly, in this moment, I can't tell you with a straight face that there is one thing. There are many things that we have to do. Put our bodies on the line in front of ICE facilities. Push Democrats and members of Congress. Push those who are running for president. Those three things we have to do. We have to do them all at once. We have to do them for a long time.
Thank you, Ana Maria. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And I think we need to throw out the organizer manuals and just dig deep in our hearts and our souls in order to lean into the risk in order to find a new type of sort of solidarity and take some really decisive direct action against what's happening on the border and everywhere else. So thank you so much.